13, 2017 regular meeting of the Troy Planning Commission. Copies of the agenda for tonight's meeting are available at the entrance to the room. Additionally, the agendas and minutes of prior meetings are available on the city's website. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the agenda as presented or amended by the Planning Commission. The roles and responsibilities of the Planning Commission are outlined on the reverse side of tonight's agenda. State law establishes planning commissions. The commission is comprised of 9 members, all of whom have volunteered to serve. Members are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by city council. The other individuals seated at the table this evening are representatives of the city's planning department, the city attorney's office, and the city's planning consultant, Carlisle Wortman and Associates. If you wish to address the planning commission, please come forward when recognized and provide your name and address on the sign-on sheet. Please begin your remarks by stating your name for the benefit of the commissioners. All remarks are to be addressed to the planning commission, not to anyone else in the room. At this time, I ask that all cell phones, tablets, or any other devices that might disrupt this meeting, please either be placed on silent mode or turned off. The roll call, Ms. Sarnicki, please.
Mr. Abahidian?
Here.
Ms. Cruz?
Here.
Mr. Edmonds?
Here.
Mr. Faison?
Here.
Mr. Hudson? Mr. Krant? Ms. Koopa?
Here.
Mr. Zanzika?
Here.
Mr. Tagle?
Here.
Ms. Howe?
Quorum present. Item number 2 on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Mr. Faison, second. Mr. Tagle, roll call, please.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Ms. Koopa?
Yes.
Mr. Zanzika?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Abahidian?
Yes. Item number 3 on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the May 23rd, 2017 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes, please? Mr. Edmonds.
Move to approve.
Second by Ms. Koopa. Roll call, please.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Ms. Koopa?
Yes.
Mr. Zanzika?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Abahidian?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Abstain.
Item number 4 on the agenda is public comment for items not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to item number 5 on the agenda, preliminary site plan reviews. Preliminary site plan review, file number SPJPLN 2017-0009, proposed Millennial Place Apartment south of East Maple, east side of Livernois, 1300 through 1310 Livernois, section 34, currently zoned IB, Integrated Industrial and Business, and MR Maple Road districts. Mr. Carlisle.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Planning Commission and the public. The first item up tonight for Planning Commission consideration is a proposed apartment development. The site, which you can see outlined in red, is approximately 17 acres. It is the home of the former Farmer Jack site, and the back end is the current operating FedEx facility. The applicant proposes to demolish the site and the existing buildings on site, combine them together, and develop a 398 apartment building. These 398 units will all be distributed in 11 buildings, which are all the same floor plan layout and architectural style. The apartments will vary from 1 to 3 bedrooms units within the buildings. I want to note that the apartments are permitted use for the site. Mr. Sadler, can you run to the landscape plan? Keep going.
Does it come
Yep, right here. So as proposed, this is the application in front of us. Again, there are 11 of these buildings. In total, there are 398 apartment buildings. Primary access is going to be off of Livernois. I should note that the recently constructed MGR Theater is located at the corner of Maple, Livernois, just south of that facility. This is the existing car wash. The applicant has reached out to the car wash, however, was not able to secure a deal with that particular facility. So again, primary access will be off Livernois. There is a secondary access off of Park, which is an industrial road. Down in this location, industrial uses, the applicant has a secondary access off of Park Street. Primary orientation is centered around the detention pond, which would be a wet detention pond as a feature to the development. and located when you first drive into the facility is the clubhouse and office for rental facilities. In addition, there will be a pool as part of that too. The applicant is proposing a playground located in this location and a dog park in this location. Parking will be a mix of in-building parking with at-grade parking, and you'll notice lining the exterior of the north and south property lines are proposed carports. The Planning Commission did receive a letter from us in regards to the concept plan approximately a month ago. We had schedules for a concept meeting with the Planning Commission. However, the applicant did ask to postpone action so that they could address the comments which were in our memo. In response, the applicant did provide a memo outlining their response to our comments, and they're asking tonight that the Planning Commission consider the site plan in front of you. In regards to the site itself, again, it's been cleared for industrial and commercial use, so there are no natural resources or trees on the site. The proposed apartments are approximately 38 feet in height, and they do meet all the requirements for zoning in terms of setback, bulk, area, etc. Again, we want to note that they are lining the southern and northern property lines with carports. Those carports do conform to the setbacks, setback requirements in the zoning district. We do note that we've asked the applicant to provide an elevation of the carport to see what those look like. However, to date, we have not received one. The applicant is doing a mix of parking, again, in the building, at grade, and within the carports. Most of the parking will be at grade and or in the carports. There's limited parking that will be located within the first floor of the building. The parking does meet the requirements of the apartment use. However, we do know that they are short approximately 2 handicap spaces, but that can easily be inserted into the site itself. The applicant was asked to provide a traffic study. They have done so. It has been submitted to the city. We are currently in review. We did get a note that has been preliminary reviewed by the traffic consultant for the city. However, they want additional data, and so we could not provide a report at this time, and that will be forthcoming once that is complete. The applicant has submitted a landscape plan. We have some very, very few minor comments. However, we do note that the proposed trash, as well as trash compactor, which is located on the northern end of the property, was not properly screened or did not indicate any screening for it, so we do ask that that be addressed moving forward. In addition, the applicant did not provide a photometric plan, and so we've asked for a photometric plan as well. We do know that the applicant has submitted detailed elevations and detailed floor plans. We do know that all the buildings look exactly the same from the elevation and floor plan. So we do ask if there's any opportunity to add some architectural differences or character to these to separate or distinguish them within the site plan. Engineering department has provided a few comments. They're in the memo. Nothing of any significance or anything that would change the site plan moving forward. So we do note that we are recommending tonight for a postponement to allow the applicant to address any comments that he may receive from the Planning Commission, address any comments from our report, and lastly, have time for an opportunity to respond to the traffic study once it's been reviewed by the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlisle. Any questions from the commissioners for Mr. Carlisle?
So this is our opportunity to provide some comments and some feedback to the applicant.
Correct. No questions, comments at this point from Mr. Carlisle?
Just one question. Is there any requirement for green space in a development like this?
There's a minimum of 20% open space, which they have met.
Okay, and what's the level that they've met at this point?
25%. 30%.
30%?
I can look for you. 25% according to landscape plan.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Evans.
Most of my comments are for the applicant and not for Mr. Carlisle, so I'll reserve those till then.
Mr. Carlisle, do we have any requirement, I know we recently passed a new zoning ordinance where to require developers to have that ABC instead of the AB in terms of elevations. Does that apply to just the building itself and the variety, or does it actually apply in some way to the diversity of the buildings on the site? Yes,
The
Mr.
ABC requirement specifically is for single-family detached homes.
Oh, okay. No other questions from the commissioners? I see the applicant is here. The applicant is ready to present. Oh, yes, Ms. Green.
I'm sorry, Mr. Carlisle or Mr. Savadon, have you at all, just in the planning department, had the opportunity to play with how the buildings are laid out within the space to create something that may be more visually interesting than what we see here with the buildings just sort of in a row stacked? Do you understand my question? If you had the opportunity to play around with that a little bit? Because you guys have better vision for that than I do. My first glance at it just says they're all like lined up in a little row. But do you have any?
Well, to be honest, you know, it's not, we're not a designer, we review.
Right,
So,
right.
But to honestly respond, I actually did a little bit. Simply because the layout here is just my feeling, and it's reflected in our first report, that it's a little bit awkward. So I looked at laying it out kind of simpler with more like a grid system with a street here and a street here with units. But again, it was very rudimentary. It was with I tracing paper and cutting out colored bits of paper, moving them around. Just really very, very rudimentary. Again, not a designer. Just kind of wanted to see how it flowed that way.
Director Savadon answered the question about layout. We also, you know, when we look at this, we did get some feedback, some bullet point feedback for the applicant to consider. And they, I know they have tried to lay this out in multiple ways, and they will explain to you why they came with what they came up with. But they did show an alternative site plan, which was in the packet, that did incorporate some of our comments. So I know that this is a large site, and there are opportunities to make some changes to it. However, I will note the applicant has thought about this, has been working on this for a long time. They will explain to you the reasoning why they laid it out as they have done.
Mr. Taylor.
Do you feel that some of the discussions you've had with the applicant to bring more creative response to this site planning would not have necessarily added large dollars to the project?
I can only answer that in part. I don't deal with the dollars and cents part of development. We gave them a laundry list of items to consider. They had noted that if they incorporated all of those in the urban plan, it would cost X amount more than what they had originally proposed to spend. I don't think that changing orientation or layout or internal road would necessarily raise the dollar amount that much. I think when you get into the cost of underground detention and parking decks and some of the other things, yes, that would significantly increase cost. But some of the easier items that we did raise, I don't think would have a significant cost increase.
So basically, as I read their comments back to you, they've said it's all or nothing. They chose to say that if we included all of your comments, it would increase the cost of this project beyond what the saleable price or the rentable price would be on these apartments. But I don't see any middle ground that the developer came back with.
Yeah, that's how I read their response as well. I will say, and I tried to encourage the applicant, that we're giving you a longer list of items to consider.
Right.
It doesn't mean you have to include all of them,
Right.
but please consider those that you could incorporate. And they came back with their second layout and said that they couldn't, by incorporating all of them, it wasn't financially feasible.
Thank you.
Mr. Edmonds, did you have a comment? Okay. Yeah, if you are ready, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Do I need to speak into the microphone or close by it?
Please.
I am Manny Kainecki. I'm an associate with S.R. Jacobson. I'd like to address some of the comments that were here. Also, just as my background, I'm a licensed professional engineer and trained as a land planner as well. I did much of the conceptual planning on this, and we worked for weeks to try all different configurations for those buildings. The site from north to south has a certain dimension that makes it very difficult to turn the buildings sideways. If you turn them sideways, you lose tremendous density. If you turn some of them sideways, again, the density doesn't work, the traffic doesn't work. If you turn them, let's say, there isn't enough room to put two side by side so that they would have a north-south orientation. There isn't enough room on the site then to get a lane in between. So we had a lot of constraints due to the dimensions of this site. After a lot of layouts, we wanted to create that open space area that kind of flows from the lower left to the central right, to have that central space with as much as we could to put units on that space, have a setting on that space, yes, exactly, and while still getting the kind of densities that we needed to make this project work. So I'd like to start, if I may, a little bit about us. First, I want to introduce, we have Scott Jacobson with us here, who is the owner of the company. We also have our engineer here, John Thompson, thank you, from PEA. But we have, the company was founded in 1978 as a residential building and development company by Scott Jacobson. And since that time, our company's developer acquired over 100 residential communities and constructed about 4,000 homes. In addition to its single-family developments, S.R. Jacobson has also been in the apartment business for almost 40 years, with a portfolio of about 2,700 units under ownership and another 1,200 units that are currently under planning and development in Michigan and in Illinois. The company has also managed these apartment communities with its in-house management company. So we have deep expertise in not only apartment construction, but also in apartment management. And S.R. Jacobson has a long and successful history of development in the city of Troy, having created 8 communities over the years, including 286 multifamily units in the village at Midtown Square, which is located at Coolidge and Maple Roads. So before any design was started for this site, we commissioned a market research study to see if an apartment community was even feasible in this location. This site isn't without its challenges because of the adjacent industrial uses to the south, east, and a portion of the north. So market studies are critical for a number of reasons, but one of the most important is they're required by all lenders in order to obtain financing for a development. So market studies assess the demand for new communities. They help determine what demographics should be targeted, determine what rents can be supported, and they provide recommendations for unit mix and unit sizing. For this particular location, the market assessment concluded that there was sufficient demand for a new apartment community, but provided that the recommended rental rates could be achieved while including upscale features and amenities that renters who want to live in newer communities are demanding today. It's not an easy task. These rates have to be competitive with both newer apartment communities in the target market area and with the existing housing inventory within this area. So now that we knew what the objectives were, we were ready to start the design process. So the first step was to determine what kind of a building design we would use. And with our architect, we decided on the 36-unit, 3-story garden-style apartment configuration that you see as best suited to meet the objectives that we needed to meet to make this project successful. As Ben mentioned, the proposed buildings contain 12 garages, 6 on each end. They provide balconies and patios for each of the units. They have modern floor plans, and they have the appropriate mix of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments that are of the sizes that are recommended by the market study. And because of the unique nature of this particular site, and with helpful input from Ben and from Brent, we worked hard to create a building exterior that would complement rather than conflict with the adjacent industrial uses, and would also appeal to a large portion of the target market, which we knew from our market study consisted of millennial professionals. So now that we had the appropriate building design determined, we turned our attention to the site design. Based on our decades of experience building and managing apartment communities, we very carefully and deliberately designed the site as we did for the following reasons. First of all, it's very important for an apartment community to have visibility and also a unique identity. So one of the challenges of this site is the amount of frontage on Livernois is relatively limited. And we're sandwiched between a car wash to the north and an Arby's restaurant to the south, with a Kentucky Fried Chicken, Wendy's restaurant, and Taco Bell across the street, and also a Marathon gas station. So having designed what we believe to be a very attractive and unique exterior, we placed one of those apartment buildings facing Livernois Road in order to provide a strong visual identification to the site as an exciting and trendy new apartment community. And also, with input from the city's planners, we placed this building close to the street in order to meet the city's objective of its form-based zoning ordinance. So we situated the leasing center and clubhouse in such a manner as to be easily visible from Livernois Road. The success of an apartment community is very strongly dependent on occupancy rates consistently exceeding 95%, and the leasing center visibility is critical to achieve this goal. So we strategically located the leasing center to be directly in front of a visitor turning into the boulevard entrance of the project, with the boulevard entrance being lushly landscaped for that first impression. The open space, the park-like landscaped area, the detention pond as a water feature was intentionally located immediately adjacent to the leasing center. So those first impressions are extremely important for marketing, and the view intentionally from the rear glass wall of the leasing center view overlooks the pool with the open space in the pond as a setting for the buildings in the distance, and that's intended to provide a wow factor for somebody that we think, considering leasing a unit in this community, that we think will be very effective in convincing a prospective visitor to this community to want to live here. So that large open space area, integrated with Bart Park and the playground and the pond and walking paths and benches, was also intended to be located as central to the site as we could make it. Besides providing a nice restful area to kind of decompress, it's a very nice setting for about 72 residences with their overlooking balconies and patios. And the other intent was to create an internal focus to the community to counteract the presence of the industrial uses that are located on the perimeters. The garage parking, the surface parking, and the carports were all designed to be as close to the residences as convenient as possible to access. This is very critical for retaining residents, and also important to someone who's considering living in this community, primarily due to the harshness of our winters. Nobody wants to have to walk a couple hundred feet to their car in a Michigan winter. Now, to help counter the potential negative impacts of the adjacent industrial uses, we placed carports all along the perimeters of the site to act as visual buffers for pedestrians and cars and first floor tenants, and also to provide, obviously, convenient sheltered parking and allow the buildings to be pulled away from the property lines and the adjacent industrial uses. So right now, the site consists of a vacant parking lot, a demolished Farmer Jack, and a FedEx terminal that contains a truck maintenance building. We've been working extensively with PM Environmental for the past few months to identify and to structure a needed environmental cleanup of existing contamination on the site that occurred from underground tanks and industrial uses. And that cleanup will begin upon site plan approval. The traffic impact study, as Ben mentioned, was prepared, not quite submitted in time for the city's review. The traffic study did conclude that although the current study intersections in the area operated heavy volumes during peak hours, which we all know, and I quote, future traffic conditions with the proposed development will be mitigated to be similar to background traffic conditions, and the development is not expected to have a significant impact on the study intersections. So to summarize, after almost a year of work, the site plan that you see, the building elevations, the floor plans that we've submitted are the result of both a careful study of the apartment market and a response to both the advantages and the limitations of this specific site. And these plans benefit from our decades of experience building and managing apartment communities. So we believe we can create a beautiful new infill apartment community on a very challenging site. And very importantly, the design of the buildings and of the site allow us to meet the requirements and recommendations of the market study, which provide the critical support that's needed for the development to be successful. We have had the opportunity to review the report that was issued for this meeting at the end of last week for our preliminary site plan submittal, and we've reviewed it with our architectural, our landscape, and our engineering consultants, and we don't have any problems addressing all the comments noted in the report and incorporating them into our plan revisions. The photometric plan is currently in preparation, should be available within a few days, and we will submit that as soon as it's available. On the other note, some of the recommendations that we talked about, I think there was a question about whether or not we could adapt some of the recommendations that were provided in the original report without it driving up the cost. And unfortunately, as I say, because we have tried so many different variations of the layouts, I think this is the best layout, and have something different. There's like nothing that we can do that wouldn't massively drive up the cost and really make this project financially infeasible. Because in order to create space, we'd either have to do underground detention, which is very expensive, or we'd have to build a parking deck, which is horribly expensive and also not as convenient for those buildings that are not right on the parking deck. So it's not something that you can do a few of those and make it work. You have to do something that's very expensive to really provide an opportunity to substantially change this site plan. On a final, also I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Brent Savedant and Ben Carlisle and the other city staff for the advice and the recommendations and the assistance they gave us during this design process, which we very much appreciate. And on a final note, we showed this proposed development to owners surrounding the site, and we obtained 13 letters, which I will hand to you, 12 of them in support and one objecting because it was an industrial user on Park Street, and he was afraid of the traffic impact of Park Street. But then again, he didn't have the benefit of the traffic study, which concluded that the impact of Park Street will be minimal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Yes, Mr. Carlo.
I had a question on the,
When you're talking to, is that important?
Yes.
Yes, that's otherwise it won't, the tape won't pick up.
I had a question on the market study.
Yes.
And, you have the rental rates for the various size units in here for the market study that was performed. So the market study, was it performed for a specific type of development?
Well, it was performed for this specific site prior to us designing even the building selection. So, the market study first defines the primary market area, where 75% of the potential residents will be drawn from. And then it analyzes the demographics. It analyzes the population increase that's expected, whether you'll be attracting younger, whether you'll be attracting older, what the proportions are, what the existing product is in the market. And then after digesting all of this and a whole bunch more, the recommendations are, okay, here's the need, here's what we think the absorption rate will be, here's what the average prices are for newer product, older product, et cetera. Here's where you need to be competitive. And so that's where we started. So, and it's a challenge because, we can't, roughly what someone can afford to pay for an apartment unit is about 30% of, that's the rule of thumb, of their salary. So if they're paying so much per month, they have to make so much per year. So you have to look at the demographics to see, what you can offer that's going to be acceptable to the market.
So my question is, some of the suggestions, would they potentially make the development more attractive to a different demographic? And so in addition to increasing the cost, did any of those also increase the revenue side? Or did you just look at incremental costs with the static revenue from the first market plan?
Well,
Because that would never work, obviously, right?
The market study defines the population that you can draw from, and then you have to design a product that's going to suit that population. So you can't really change the population that is there, that you can attract for a new, does that make sense?
Well, you can attract the population from a different place.
Well, not in this location. See, the thing is, it depends where you are, okay? So let's say if you're going for the luxury market, okay? The market report concluded that this was not a good location for a luxury market. If you were next to Somerset, that would be a good location for a luxury market. You could build more expensive product, and you can get higher rents. Okay, so that, they take that very much into consideration. So they're saying, in this particular location, this is the market, this is where you need to be. And if you're not here, then you are much less likely to be successful.
Right, you have to build a product suitable for the market you're in.
Exactly.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes.
I was curious about the layout in being in Michigan. What I'm concerned about is the Michigan winters and the piling of snow and the operation of the winter, snow plowing, because there's very little open space to plow any snow on the east side of the development. And have you considered that? I know you operate a lot of apartment complexes. What would you have to do in order to provide adequate parking
Right.
with the amount of snow and piling of snow that would be provided to
This
the
snow
site?
is going to be pushed into here. This snow is going to be pushed into here. Probably this will be pushed either to here or to here before it's pushed into here. So that's, and that's a good thing. The Bart Park, which after a snowstorm you probably have to abandon somewhat, is going to take some of the snow. And yes, we do look at that. This is a good opportunity here to push snow. You can push it this way. We've got a playground here that's not going to be used in the winter, so we can push a lot of our snow here. We can push snow to the sides. And you're really only talking about if you have 10 inches or more, we have a major storm where you can't just pile it along the sides of the road.
Interesting. I was a little disappointed when I saw the recommendation to provide underground storage, because I think the water feature is absolutely perfect for the site, and it does, it's a drawing feature for the community, and I think it's in my opinion, water features are always well needed, very well needed in a complex development like this. My other question is the construction phasing and what you anticipate for your the number of units you'll be renting. How long will it take? Do you plan on building all the units at one time, or what's your plan?
No, the
for
market
the
study
phasing?
actually tells us what to expect in terms of the absorption rate and how many buildings. I think
It's 10.
I think it was 4 buildings to start with, is that what it was? And then once they're rented up to a certain point, then you do 2 more, and then you do 2 more, and so on. So you start with the leasing center, and, it could be no more than 4, maybe less, buildings to start, and then you kind of, and it's going to be several years before you have everything leased up and everything is stabilized.
Will you be building all the roads?
Oh, yes, yes.
All the infrastructure will be?
Up at first?
Yes.
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Scott says yes. So I guess it's yes.
Excuse me, and I'll identify myself, Scott Jacobson, with Manny, and I don't need to be here, quite frankly, he's the idea here would be to, build our model building up front. We had a lot of success at Midtown Square with the buildings that we built along Maple. I was concerned when we put those up that we might have issue, but it turned out that those were the hottest buildings to go. People want to live up on the main street. So I think the same thing here, and we're excited about this development. This will be the entry basically into the city of Troy. Hopefully we clean up what it currently doesn't look so great. And so we're excited about people driving north on Livernois, and boom, you're in Troy, and there's some nice things to really look at. So we're excited about that. I said to Manny, is there a welcome to Troy sign up there? I said, and maybe it's a little farther south, but we'd be happy to put one of those up if it was important to the city. The other thing is, it's important for us, young people are moving downtown. okay? I mean, you see what's going on. I mean, here, people are living downtown and they're commuting back to the suburbs for work. We want to try to create something here to keep our children in the suburbs, quite frankly. You know, we think that's an opportunity for us. Not every young person wants to live downtown. So we're trying to create something here that's exciting, fresh and new. I mean, there's a lot of apartments in the market, but we think there's some real demand for new, fresh product. You know, we're doing a lot of things that the young people like in terms of, you know, delivery to their units from Amazon, making sure that the Amazon deliveries could get into their unit. I mean, there's things we have to consider that, quite frankly, I didn't know about until my kids told me about it. So I'm taking a lot of advice from them. But we're very excited about, you know, I passed this site for years. I said, boy, this would be a great location for, you're a mile from Clawson, you're 3 miles downtown. We're low, 4 miles from Birmingham, 2 miles into the city of Troy. So we just think it's an exceptional location, and we're hoping that we get the support from the community that says, boy, this will be a nice addition to the city of Troy. What currently stands is not the best looking site in the community, that has had a lot of problems, a lot of failures. You had a McDonald's that failed there, you had a Farmer Jack that failed there. So it's been a troubled site, and we're excited about the prospect with your support to be able to turn that around, let our young people stay in the community, not send them downtown. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. The marketing report that we did suggest, and they look at, by the way, Manny didn't mention, but they do look at new product coming online. For whatever's today, if they did the report and there's something new coming on that they didn't see, they can't consider that, but they know about Town Center and what should be happening there in the future, knew about the potential development on Big Beaver. So they've taken everything into consideration, and they see at least demand of over 400 units at this particular rental point. And we can't imagine a better location, for the recommendations. We had a gut feeling that it would work. They really supported it with the market evaluation that they did. So I just want to add that, but probably didn't have to add much because Manny does such a good job.
Any other questions from the commission? Mr. Edmonds?
Well, I'm just really disappointed. I don't understand what garden-style building is. There's no place for a garden there. Why do you say it's a garden-style?
It's vernacular. It's a three-story walk-up building.
Right.
That's just what they call it.
That only appeals to millennials.
Not only the millennials, and there'll be some people that are older than millennials here. It's just, we think that's
There's
no
no
elevators,
elevators, correct?
No elevators. These are walk-up. Now, what we did do is we created our largest units, 3-bedroom units, on the first floor with attached garage to it. So if there's someone that doesn't want to climb stairs, and they're not a millennial, it still works for them. So, anybody can move in there, but again, we just saw that there's a significant opportunity with, that demographic.
Well, let me just continue with some, if I may, some of my other comments. This is one of the really unique parcels, 13 acres, that's essentially a blank slate for a developer. I think putting 11 buildings that all look alike, and I can remember when I, was a young person who might be interested in some of this, if I'd had a drink the night before and coming home trying to find my apartment, how are they going to find out? They all look alike. They look, I think there's not enough, articulation or something that makes each building unique. Are they going to have addresses or something like that?
Yes, yeah, no, and unfortunately, it's not here. We'll have nice addresses that will, look good, kind of contemporary looks, and they'll be significant.
That's my whole point, is that this is a unique opportunity, and I don't think you folks have taken advantage of that. That's the end of my comment. Thank you.
Mr. Stanzica?
Well, I always like to get the engineer up and ask him a few questions, since that's my interest in my background. But I was concerned about the stormwater management and And if all the, where all the flow is going, if all the flow from the entire site is going to the detention basin and how it's split up on the site. Maybe John can answer the question.
John, you're up.
Bill always likes to give me a shot.
Thank you.
I'm here anyways, I need to talk. Good evening, John Thompson with PEA. Stormwater management. Stormwater management is divided into two halves, to the east and to the west. Basically, FedEx goes down to Park Street, and the ex-supermarket goes to Livernois. So it's two separate districts. What we did was design one detention pond to meet the requirements of both districts. So what we've got is two outlets going into the pond, or out of the pond, both to cover the City of Troy standards of a 25-year storm. So we're actually over-detaining as we're going into the 12 Towns drain, which is a combined sewer. So, and the requirements through the county is a 20-year design storm on that. So we're using one pond to create two purposes for two different districts, and allowing the water discharge at both locations at the same time.
Is the stormwater going into the combined sewer area?
Correct.
So the pond is split up into two?
Pond has
Two outlets?
Two outlets, the same elevation.
Interesting, okay. I was hoping that you could defer one of the outlets to the separated area versus the combined area.
Well, will be half and half.
Half of it, not the entire thing. All right, well, thank you very much.
Question for you. Chairman?
Go ahead, Mr. Teague.
Was it, and this is kind of a planning question and an engineering question, but was it ever considered, instead of having one large pond, to have two medium-sized ponds and place a second pond further east on the property?
I'll defer to Manny on that question, but I think the concept behind the large vista behind the leasing area was really the intent here. So we wanted that large expanse to create that large single pond.
So from an engineering standpoint, there'd be nothing wrong with having a divided pond, having two ponds instead of one?
Well, you do get some economy in size. So a smaller pond, the larger your pond, the more circular it is, the greater volume you get. So if you look at a pond in terms of the design as a long hot dog, as a linear ditch along the side of the road, you get very little volume. So in order to meet the requirements of the storage, it's best to have one large area.
So it's a financial decision, is what you're saying?
It's a design issue.
It's a design issue with regards to how to most economically.
Part of it is financial, but
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's the best design for the impact on the site.
But it's not necessarily the best design for the planning of the site, is my point. I mean, engineering-wise, if we're going to just look at the numbers from an engineering perspective, yeah, let's put one big pond in the middle or wherever on the site. But when you start looking at the planning and the massing on this site, I don't believe that is the best solution overall.
Can I speak to that?
I'd love you to come up because I have some other questions.
Sure. Okay. That was one of the alternatives that we looked at. The problem is that you get two kind of dinky ponds, and you don't really have the impact of having a substantial mass of water. You have to also realize that the pond has slopes. So you can see those are contour lines, and the actual water surface is not at the top of the slope, but it's further down. So when you make that smaller, it looks like a hole. It looks like a hole with some water in the bottom. And you don't get the stability of the water mass because you want this to be fresh and clean. So you have to have some depth to it. In order to have depth to a pond, you have to have some size. Because you can only go a certain steepness once you get into the water. It just doesn't, from an engineering and planning point of view, it just didn't work well at all.
Well, I'm not an engineer, but I don't necessarily agree with your assessment of this. I've been in this business for a long time. You've referred a lot to your market study.
Right.
You've referred to working on this site for a year. Can you tell us what other successful properties like this for millennials you studied to see what kind of planning they used, what kind of site planning that they use that you looked at to say, hey, how could we take these ideas or these concepts and parlay them into this piece of property? Do you have any particular instances or projects that you looked at or studied?
I mean, there's a number of projects we study. I mean, we look more at what are they, trying to figure out what they want, what they're looking for. But that's more in respect to what type of unit, what they'll need in their unit, what to do in the clubhouse, and what to provide for them for their enjoyment and for them to come in and want to be part of this community.
I think from a planning perspective, there are different scales that you want to be successful at. And I haven't looked at your floor plan layouts to say they're successful or not, or going to be successful or not. But from a more holistic or stepping back perspective, when I look at this site plan and when I know of other plans that are successful, what millennial, I don't know if you're giving millennials enough credit. They're a very sophisticated group now. They're not going to buy what I might have bought or what you might have bought. They're looking for something that is, that fits their lifestyle. This, to me, this site plan was a site plan of yesterday. It's not a site plan that would be attractive to millennials today. And I just wanted to know that you've studied this property for a year, your consulting firm gave you a marketing study. What foundation did you guys use to come up with this as a plan? I understand the site is challenging, but quite honestly, creative ideas overcome the challenging sites or overcome the challenging projects. So I just want to know what reference do you have?
Again, because there's, this is obviously a huge investment, so it's not something that we're going to kind of, on our own, think that, oh yeah, this is going to work. So we talk to everybody. We talk to the architect who has designed many projects like this. We talk to commercial realtors and brokers who are in the apartment multifamily industry. We talk to other multifamily developers who we know, all of the prominent ones. We talk to the marketing consulting firm. They have a lot of expertise. And they are confident. I mean, they have done hundreds, if not thousands, of these studies. Many of them are targeted for millennials. So when they advise us to say, okay, certain portion of your market is going to be millennials, it's not entirely millennials, but that.
Not with 3-bedroom units. A millennial's not going to buy a 3-bedroom.
Yes, but we only
Small
have
number.
12 units total, I think, of 3-bed, or is it 20 or something? It's a small number. Our units are primarily 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom. And then, with our architect, we sit down and say, okay, what are millennials looking for today? What is the layout? The openness of the kitchen. If you have 2 bedrooms that they're separated with a living space in between, they're not next to each other like they used to be. So we did not come up with this on our own. We have talked to dozens of people that are in the market in order to come to the conclusions. This is, as I say, this is a massive investment. We can't afford to make a mistake. So
I understand that, and I certainly, like I said a minute ago, I wasn't assessing or being critical of your floor plans. I don't know, I haven't looked at them closely. I'm referring to what's in front of us tonight as far as a site plan. And it sounds like you've listened to other people, but as far as, and I don't know if you were the planner, but I sense from the documents I've read that you had a lion's share in the planning of this. What?
Yes,
I haven't
involved
heard
afterwards.
I haven't heard what other developments, whether it's in Michigan or whether it's in those communities that are very popular with millennials, the communities that millennials are leaving this state for to go to. What's attracting them as far as a housing market and as far as planning? Because I just don't see it here.
I think from what we have been able to learn, what's important to the millennials, we have addressed. We have incorporated into our plan. The layout of the buildings is not particularly important to them. What is important to them is the convenience in parking, is the exterior appearance of the buildings, the layout of the units themselves, those kinds of things that they're millennials. Unless you're in an area where you can walk within a few blocks, they're going to get in their car and they're car oriented and they're going to drive, and that's the situation in Michigan. There are some urban environments downtown where that isn't true, but we don't have a good transportation system in the suburbs, so they're car oriented. So that was an important factor in terms of how we designed the site. I think, again, maybe just the way the buildings are placed on the site seems to be, I think, a big concern that you have. And I don't know that there is anything that we were able to find out in talking to all the people that we've talked to, that that's really a concern of millennials.
Well, you definitely have paid homage to the car.
That was intentional, and it's
That's
critical.
unfortunate,
And again,
in my opinion.
we have 4 decades of experience in managing and leasing, and from that, we know what's important. With all respect, all due respect, we know what's important and what we have to have. So if you've got something that's nice and urban and it's a parking deck, but you have to walk across the street 250 feet to the parking deck, it's not going to work, not in Michigan. It may work in certain environments, but not here, not in the suburbs,
Well, in this particular site.
on this particular
This
site.
is a very, very challenging site.
I have another question for you. The planning consultant and the planning department made one of the recommendations, among the other ones they had, to actually put retail
Yes,
on frontage
yes.
on Livernois, either mixed use or just
Yes.
retail alone. Can you speak to that?
Sure.
and why?
We evaluated that very carefully, and we actually even had a company that we respect, Lormax Stern. We asked them to do an evaluation. They have developed 20 million square feet of retail, and they took a look at this site, and they came back, and I'll give you a letter because we asked them to put it in writing. And what they basically said was, they strongly recommended that we do not do retail on this site. The only retail that seems to be feasible here is fast food restaurants, and that's pretty weak. McDonald's failed. McDonald's moved to a Maple Road location. So whereas the Maple Road corridor is very strong, we are literally 3 football fields south of Maple Road. And we're in an area that has transitioned into industrial and very quickly, as you go to the south, into residential. So this is a very weak area for retail. Now, we have a restriction on about half of the frontage, the southern half of the frontage, because it was previously a McDonald's, and we didn't purchase the site, our seller purchased the site. But there's a 20-year restriction against any restaurants on that site. So, you know, that knocks out what the most logical market would be for retail. There's a limited amount of frontage, which is problematic. It's problematic that there's a car wash and fast food and Marathon across the street, and their feeling was that this is really a poor location for retail.
Do you feel that if you would add retail there, that the tenants having 95% occupancy of 400 units would be able to provide some, to sustain the retail, that's at least a portion of what's...
You know, it seems like what they would be likely to sustain would be something food-related, which we're restricted against doing on much of the site.
So you couldn't put a coffee shop?
You could, but a coffee shop, well, I don't think you could, actually, and if you could, you'd have to subsidize it. I mean, that's been tried in apartment complexes, and
You have coffee right at the corner.
you've got coffee right at the corner, and you've got all of those retail uses along Maple Road. And I know this is considered part of the Maple node, but in reality, I think we're a little too far south.
Any other thoughts? Yes, Ms. Cruz?
Boy, I don't know, I have lots of things to say. I'm going to start with, I applaud your effort to create the kind of housing that we as a planning commission have asked for with respect to our younger generation, and keeping our new college graduates closer to home. So I have absolutely no issue whatsoever with what it is that you're trying to accomplish. I think it's fabulous. When I think about the communities that I've been to where the millennials are relocating, this spring I was in New York City. Last summer I was in Chicago. I'm in Detroit with a fair amount of regularity. And, you know, the millennials flock to these locations, you know, for what you describe as an urban lifestyle. But I'm not sure that we're all defining the urban lifestyle the same way. So when I think urban lifestyle, I'm thinking these are young people that are looking for jobs, right? So they want to be in economically viable areas. I think Troy's an economically viable area. It certainly has a lot of global headquarters located here, as well as technology and other things. So I think that we have that. I think that they're looking for convenience. They want to be able to walk to places. They want to walk to their entertainment, to places to eat. They want to have things to do with their friends. They like the density. They don't seem to be a demographic that wants fences between the neighbors, right? They're very comfortable with the density. I think that where some of the developers that I see come before us kind of falter is the assumption that the urban lifestyle automatically is then synonymous with this really contemporary architectural style, as though the millennials don't have an appreciation for architectural style that has detail, or that is anything but steel and glass and cement. And so I am struggling with this project with 11 buildings that are all identical, that there's been no attempt, or there's nothing different. The windows are all the same, the awnings are all the same, the entrance thing. I mean, there's not anything interesting to set these different buildings apart. And so to Mr. Tagel's point that, you know, don't sell them short. They are like any other human being. They have an appreciation for things that are aesthetic. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's sterile or plain or looking like, I mean, I sort of call that style prison dormitory because I can't come up with anything nicer. So, you know, and don't think that the millennials don't appreciate landscaping. You know, I look at this site plan up here and I see a lot of black asphalt, and I don't see much in the way of trees. And I know you're going to have the big pond, and I think that's fabulous. I think the dog park, I'm over the moon with the dog park idea. I think that's great. But I just think that given the fact that this is a gateway location into the city, that you are absolutely doing, you have this fabulous idea of keeping our younger generation here, let's not sell it short. Let's add some architectural interest. I think it's appreciated. Just because they're young doesn't mean they don't get it, or they don't see it, or they don't want it. We as baby boomers are making this assumption that they don't care. All they care about is convenience, walkability, their floor plan. I would disagree. I would disagree with that.
Well, a couple things, if I may. I don't know that we're really, our goal is not necessarily to create an urban lifestyle. You know, millennials are a very broad range, and some of them want the urban lifestyle where they don't have a car and they want to walk to everything and they want to be downtown. That's not our that's not the market that we're going for. There's also, you know, and again, they're very wide ranging. There are others who work in the suburbs, want to stay in the suburbs, and they want the convenience. You know, they're going to drive everywhere, and they want that's important to them. So it's not. I mean, there's really not many places to walk to here. You can walk to the theater, you can walk to a couple of fast food places, and you can get coffee at the corner. After that, you got to get in your car.
I don't disagree, but
right.
I would still submit that when I'm in New York City, when I'm in Chicago, when I'm in Detroit, this is not the architectural style that I'm seeing.
Let me talk about that a little.
That
Right.
you think is attracting this demographic.
You know, we're around industrial, so we have colonial, standard suburban colonial elevations. And of course, in talking with, you know, planners, we talked about, you know, trying to draw in, not hide from the industrial, it's there, right?
It's not
So
just
bring
for
some of those
millennials.
components. So what we did, and I'm hearing it loud and clear, we'll take a look at our elevations, we'll take a look at some materials.
And we're playing
Maybe
with
changing
different
some things up and having a variety. I've heard that from a number of the planners, and I can't argue with that too much.
Yeah.
So I think we could take a look at it, talk about, you know, changing some of the materials around, you know, this goes horizontal, vertical, yeah, just, I mean, I'm hearing, you know, the planning commission, and I think we could play around different colorization. one of the things we did here, we did a study, you know, from what you said, this does look more industrial. Well, I think this brings a little more residential flavor into it by brick color. You know, a red brick, which is, you know, traditionally, you know, colonial-looking brick, I think you put that together, and it's pretty attractive. I think it's the same color as the firehouse down the street. You know, there's a the new firehouse is red brick and the gray tone. So we can play with texture, color, and, you know, come back to you and see if, you know, it makes more sense to the community. That's something we could certainly take a look at.
Did you notice when you came here tonight for the meeting, the building that's at the corner of Towns? Did you
Yes,
notice that building?
I looked at it when I came in, yes.
This isn't so different than that. To me,
Okay.
this isn't so different than that. Now, am I a developer? No. I mean, am I an architect, an engineer? No, I'm none of those things. I'm just a girl that lives here in Troy, and I drive around, and I come here all
You
the
smell
time.
something, you lose to something.
So I'm just saying, to me, I look at these pictures, and the two buildings are interchangeable. And this is not my favorite building. And that's an understatement.
Let me just understand, this is a different perspective. There's pitched roofs on these. You can't see them because they're 3 stories tall. Not that that's a feature that's going to enhance the elevation, because it isn't, but just so you understand, it's not a flat roof structure. So you will see, you know, 3 or 4 12 pitch from different spots, you know, driving down Livernois. But we will take a look at, you know, colorization, changing some texture, doing some things that might, you know, be more interesting.
I would
in
like
the
to see
community.
this project work. Again, I applaud what it is that you're trying to accomplish. It's certainly something that we've asked for here as a planning commission, for more of this kind of housing, so that we can have that demographic in Troy that addresses all ages. So you know, I really would like to see this succeed and do well. But I just think there needs to be some tweaking.
Okay.
The elevation design was as much, if not more, an attempt to fit into the area and not fight the industrial as it was to appeal to a particular demographic. And that's something that really, with the planning department, we discussed as to what direction. I think the first time that we brought in an elevation, it was colonial.
It was clear, colonial shutters.
Right,
You know.
and, you know, and I think we got the direction, or the feeling was, yeah, you know, this really isn't appropriate for this location. Can you do something that's, you know, more, fits in a little better? So that's what this was a reaction to, you know, as much as an attempt to
So you went from like one
attract.
extreme to the other.
Believe me, I mean, I look at this, and I'm saying, it scares me. I mean, I show this to my banks. I say, guys, you financed it? Oh, let me.
Yeah.
The general reaction we've gotten is people love it. I mean, you know, we gave it to our marketing company. They got 50 young people who worked there. They put it on the wall, okay, who doesn't like it? And they got a very positive, because, yeah, it's not what I like, it's what the market likes and what the
Right.
community likes to
Right,
see. you know?
right.
And we take these with us everywhere, we show them to everybody, and we try to get the reaction of people that are not in the industry, not in the trade, because it's hard for us to be objective. So we get that input as we develop this, and again, this is our preliminary conceptual, so it still needs to be refined.
And we tried, you know, looking at the urban centers where a lot of young people don't, we look at downtown Royal Oak and look for something that's down there, you know, there's a brick building on the corner of Main Street, and it's at 11 or 12 mile, you know, it feels like this a little bit. We've looked at things downtown. We've talked to the designers of the buildings downtown Detroit, they've looked at it. So we've gotten a pretty decent reaction to it, but I'm hearing everybody, hey, there, you know, 11 buildings the same.
A lot.
Yeah,
It's a
so,
lot.
you know, we hear you, so we'll try to come up with a scheme or a plan that, you know, takes care of that situation, maybe.
Otherwise, Don can't find his way home.
Especially if I've had a drink.
I know.
Right there, this is,
Ms. Cooper?
I'm gonna be fun for you.
Hey, drink, you're a cheap date, Don.
Trying to move this forward, Ms. Cooper.
So I just would like to say one thing. I appreciate the fact that there's not a room full of people, that you took the time to contact the neighbors and, you know,
just made sure that your neighbors are friendly to your work, because we at the commission have had rooms full of people in some of our sessions. But I would like to say one thing, and that is, I don't know who your demographic is, but I'll tell you, I wouldn't want to live there. That density, the look. So the other thing that really, John said before, it's very much an apartment complex of yesterday, because this reminds me of the kind of places that we have already, where many of my people who look like me live, and I don't think that their children would want to come back. My kids would not want to come back and live in an apartment complex like this, I'll be honest with you. It's not the look and feel of a place that I would see my kids wanting to come back to Troy for. I mean, they're not there yet, but.
I mean, not everyone's gonna love every elevation, but, you know, again, in talking to, you know, the planners and trying to adapt to where we're at, this is what we came up with, you know, and you know, the reaction we've gotten has been very positive, not with everybody, of course, but, you know, we've looked at these urban centers now. You know, you go downtown Welk, it's 4 or 5 stories, we understand this, it's a little bit different look. You go downtown, you know, it's 6 stories, and maybe it takes a little different look, but some of the elements, some of the textures, we feel, you know, that we've come up with something that, you know, I think is pleasant looking, and hopefully, you know, everybody, not everybody, but majority of people see it that way.
Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, for me personally, you understand where I'm coming from. For what you're trying to accomplish, I am not troubled at all by what I'm seeing as far as your elevations. In my personal opinion, don't come back with a pitched roof. The pitched roof doesn't belong in this kind of
Well,
architecture.
no, it's just to get the water off. It's a low 312 that you can't, you don't see it.
But if you're trying to do, or you're trying to fit in with an industrial setting, I have no problem with what this is. My comments were really based on your site plan. Your site plan falls terribly short, in my professional opinion, as to what it could be. I understand there are challenges with the site, the shape of the site, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I really feel that you need to look at this and try to improve that site plan. As far as the buildings, you know, the architecture looks good. I think the architecture is something that the millennials would be attracted to, based on my experience. But, you know, again, to me, my comments were more focused on the planning of the site.
Okay, thank you. And we worked it, we'll you know, study it.
Ms. Cruz?
I have one final comment, and that is, I have acquired a reputation for being a garbage girl, and that is, I'm real picky about the dumpsters, and I need garbage to be pretty.
We have a trash compactor.
I need it to be pretty, I need it to be enclosed. I
Yes.
don't want,
You don't want dumpsters just kind of...
I don't want overflowing dumpsters that are askew and are just, you look at it and you throw up in your mouth. No. No.
This is actually state-of-the-art. It's something that's fairly new on projects, and that is a large compactor, and there's only one compactor. And you're going to have to take your garbage and put it in your trunk, and you're going to take it to the compactor for disposal, rather than having these unsightly, ugly bins all over the site. Now, we have done a lot of research on this to see how much objection there is in communities to having that, and we have found to our surprise that there is very, very little or none. So it will be screened. You can actually see the little sidewalk that's indicated there. It has to be handicapped accessible. So you have to be able to dump your garbage if you're in a wheelchair. So we're very cognizant of that. We've tucked it into the corner that way. It will be much more heavily screened. We didn't, you know, do the screening details yet, but I think you'll be happy.
Okay, just so we're clear on the garbage. It's
Just a quick question on that. So yeah, but everyone goes to the same compactor?
Yep. But that thing's as big as a semi.
But again, you gotta put your garbage in your trunk or carry it
Yeah.
to the compactor.
What we found, or what we've heard, they'd rather do that than see the dumpsters all over the community. They just like, it's a cleaner look.
Yeah.
You know, when you just have that, and, you know, to your point, Karen, it's not real attractive, and they always get hit, And they always took, you know.
Just one follow-up question.
Do you have that set up at any of your other projects?
We're starting to. You know, we've talked to a couple of national apartment builders as to exactly what they're doing. And this is just quite recent, so they're starting to do this. They've done it in 2 or 3 projects. It's been quite successful. So again, we're learning from people who have already experienced
We're
this.
planning one this summer to start in Illinois.
Right.
with the-
Yep, same thing. So from this point on, we're going to put them in all of our projects.
All right, thank you.
Okay, yes, Mr. Stovall.
Technology for compactors now is improving as related to sound. It's really, sound levels have really dropped down. These essentially eliminate rodents around dumpsters.
Thanks.
These work really well.
Any other questions or comments before we just wrap this up? Do we need to have a resolution to postpone, or we just,
There's a resolution.
is there,
Well, does the applicant feel that they've received enough direction from the planning commission? Is there any specific elements of the site plan that you want consensus on, or specific direction, or are you satisfied?
We've heard everyone loud and clear. I think we have to take a look certainly at our elevations, maybe varying those a little bit. It's a real tight site. I don't know what we'll accomplish with, we'll take another look. I mean, we have really spent a lot of time on this. When we got the comments back from the city, we took a very hard look, and I mean, we got that plan, we drew it. And it didn't work for us in this particular location.
We do have one request. My conversation with John. In order to meet the parking requirement, which by the way is very heavy, we have over 2 parking spaces per unit. In many areas, we tend to have 1.7 to 1.8 that we found are sufficient. We'd like to request your consideration that we not park down the strip to Park Street. We already have some spaces over, so that would put us literally a handful of spaces under, perhaps. That is really their intended, just to technically meet the ordinance requirements. I think otherwise, right now, we're not needing any variances. We've designed everything to your standards. But if that's something you would consider, we would very much appreciate it.
So on that one, you actually meet the parking requirements for 398 units?
Oh, yes. We exceed them by, how many units, John? One. We exceed them by 1 unit. I thought it was more.
That's a stretch of exceed.
is that being converted to green space? Is that what the intent is here, or?
Well, yes, it's green space now. That road is there, and it's actually, that strip is a part of the property. It's not a right-of-way. It's within the metes and bounds of the parcel. We could park along there, but, it's not real convenient.
Mr. Savia?
One of the drawings that was provided shows these parking spaces as being land bank, and the planning commission does have the authority to approve land bank parking. So how this could work would be, they prove that they can provide the spaces if needed. These would be for guest parking or overflow parking. And so if there's a history of there being parking issues, the city could require them to pave this, but until there's a necessity for demonstrated need to do it, this could remain as green space.
Sure.
By the way, we're 8 spaces over, not 1.
And we are 30% open space, correct?
We have 30% open space, not 25.
So Mr. Savia mentioned that if these are eliminated.
Land banked?
they
Yes,
can just
that would be-
land
that'd
banked
be
for a
great.
future
That'd be very
need.
agreeable.
I just want to go back to one question that was already brought up. If you can elaborate a little bit more. You mentioned that the buildings are being phased in. Do you at least have a plan of what might be the first 4
Here's
buildings?
the thought.
The first
We
4
want-
buildings?
We'd like the model building to be up front, so what we would do is develop the model building along Livernois, so we'll have a couple model units that you'll be able to walk from the leasing center across the street. So we'll build those 2 buildings first to be able to show, potential residents, hey, this building's going to be here, this leasing center and pool and everything's going to be there. It's important to have that up front. Have the model building, we'll light it, we want it to be seen 24 hours a day, that boy, I keep driving by that place, I want to live there. So that's important for us. And then what we'll do is we'll probably go to the back and work our way out. because you can't start in the front, right? And then the trucks are coming through, and then everyone's complaining that trucks are coming through, and plus it beats up the paving and the utilities. So we're trying to go from the back, work our way up. That would be the plan that makes sense.
But the point is, you're going to be building all the infrastructure at one time.
Right.
All the roads. and-
Yeah, it's just so tight.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's tight.
Are you going to have both access points open from the very beginning of the project, or do you have any intent of actually
You know,
closing this off?
we'll work with the city and whatever makes the most sense to disrupt the community as little as possible. So, maybe construction trucks come up through Park, or, we'll come up, we'll devise a plan with you guys to say, how do we do this in the most reasonable fashion to not create as little problems to anybody as possible.
Right now, again, that's a FedEx terminal. There's a lot of FedEx trucks that go up and down that strip of Park Street. That's their only access. So no matter what we do, it's going to be a lot less traffic.
And the other thing we didn't talk about too much, which probably should mention, is, our seller, they're waiting for us to hopefully get an approval on this. Then they start the remediation, because there's some remediation of some leaking tanks and those types of things. So they're waiting, and that doesn't start them cleaning up the site until they know that we're moving forward. There's some cleanup, it doesn't seem to be too heavy, but they have it, apparently under control, and reports and what has to be done, and those things.
Okay, yes, Mr. Edmonds.
Just one other thing, the planning commission does require samples of materials.
Okay.
So when you come back the next time, be sure you have samples.
Okay, not a problem. Yeah, we
Is that
should.
for preliminary or for final?
No, for site plan approval.
Yeah, I know we have, so
Okay.
that should be an issue.
Okay, I think we're ready to, was there a resolution on this again? Is there, okay, we just postpone. Somebody would like to read the resolution, Ms. Cooper?
Preliminary site plan review file SPJPLN 2017-0009, proposed Millennial Place apartment south of East Maple, east side of Livernois, 1300-1310 Livernois, section 34, currently zoned IB, integrated industrial and business, and MR, Maple Road districts. Be resolved that the preliminary site plan approval pursuant to Article 8 of the zoning ordinance, as requested for the proposed Millennial Place apartments located south of Maple on the east side of Livernois, Section 34 within the IB and MR districts, be postponed to provide an opportunity for the city of Troy to review the applicant's traffic study and for the applicant to come back with a revised site plan or response to.
Or response to the comments. at this
Response to the
meeting.
comments received this evening.
Can I get a second for that, Mr. Faison? Roll call, Ms. Zarnicki.
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Zanzika? Mr. Jekyll?
Yes.
Mr. Appidian?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item is postponed until next time with a request for the applicant.
Very good, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, see you. Bye-bye.
Item number 6 on the agenda tonight, preliminary site plan review file number SPJPLN 2017-0017, proposed Troy Market Place Outlaw Addition, southwest corner of Big Beaver and Rochester, 840 East Big Beaver, section 27, currently zoned DB, Big Beaver District.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Savant, can you scroll down to, yeah, let's start here. In late 2016, the Planning Commission granted preliminary site plan for infill of this existing site on the corner of Rochester and Big Beaver. This is the location of the Nordstrom Rack, the P.F. Chang, et cetera.
Not PF Chang.
Payway, sorry. This is Payway location. This is the back area where the Nordstrom Rack's what was approved originally was 3 outlot standalone buildings in these locations to infill this site as well as infill the existing stormwater. What was outstanding and hanging was this fourth 840 site. And at that time, in our discussions with the applicant, we've encouraged them to try to acquire that property as part of this project. They tried diligently to do that prior to coming before the Planning Commission at that date. They were unable to do so. However, between when they received preliminary site plan approval from the Planning Commission and today, they have acquired that parcel. It's an existing house that's been converted to a dental office building. And so what they are proposing is to add a 4th building to that row of 3 that were approved. And the architecture and the scale and the consistency matches what was approved as part of the approval in late 2016. The only issue that we do note is the applicant did not provide a revised photometric plan as part of the revised application. So we are asking for that as part of the final site plan. But the 4th building matches the 3 that were approved by the Planning Commission in 16.
Thank you, Mr. Carlisle. Any questions for Mr. Carlisle? Not right now. So the applicant is here. Please,
Mr.
Mike.
Mr. Chairman, while Mr. Galantine goes to the microphone, Mr. Galantine, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you were before the Planning Commission in 2016, you were following a very lengthy public hearing, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're 2 for 2. Lengthy discussion.
We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. Everything's fine. First of all, we're very excited that we have an opportunity to have an option to buy this land. We haven't fully secured it yet, but part of the due diligence is to get site plan approval. Like was stated by Ben, the architecture, everything matches what we've already done. It brings the streetscape up Big Beaver and cleans it up, looks great, and there's not much I can say we've already got what's there. I'm also here with Fred Zentano, who's the Vice President of Ramco Gershenson, Dave Hunter, partner of PEA, and Mark Drain, partner of Broadway Architects. So we got people here to answer questions, and hopefully I'm going to make this short for you.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Comments? I think we've seen the entirety of this project, the scope of the project last year, and this new addition just fits in very well, and elevations are continuous with the existing, with the other proposed buildings that you're proposing on other lots. So,
I just have one quick
yes,
question.
Mr. Chairman.
Was the water feature there, is it any part of the stormwater management plan? Or is it just a water feature?
It was part of the stormwater management plan originally, and then we've taken that went to a certain district. Dave can probably answer that question more, but we took those, and we have 2 underground detentions. One works one district, one pond, one works the other pond that was there.
Okay, so you accommodated the...
Correct, and we also sized it so, just in case we were able to acquire this piece of property, the detention is already sized already for it.
All right, thank you.
Because we were keeping our fingers crossed.
Yeah, thank you. I would rather have heard from Mr. Hunter, but he did it very good.
Come on, Dave.
No, you did a good job, that's fine, thank you. Just giving it a hard time.
Mr. Taylor.
I have a very minor question. I look at the architecture of this, and I, quite honestly, at my age, I forget what we've approved, so I don't remember approving, but I take it in the minutes we have. And the question I have for you or the architect is, this building is very substantial in its materials. You've got masonry, and you've got brick, and you've got metal awnings, and then I see this little row of EIFS across the top. And I'm really curious as to why that material, which is a very, I guess we could be polite and say cost-effective material, why was that material chosen with all the substantive material that is on this building or buildings?
Well, I'm no Dave Hunter, but I'm Mark Drain. I'm with Rockboy Architects. I think 19 years ago, we designed the original shopping center. And you'll notice that shopping center has a little bit more traditional look. It has the high cornices, which are made out of EIFS. The idea was that we were going to bring some of those materials forward. And when that EIFS is up high, it doesn't read as what you think it is. So we never put ephes low where you can see it and touch it and understand what it is, but it's up high as a decorative element, and it is, yes, it is cost effective, but I also think it's a nice architectural solution.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments before I think we're ready to move to the resolution. Yes, Mr. Edmonds.
I'm ready to move the resolution.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Edmonds.
Resolution PC 2017-06, resolved that preliminary site plan approval pursuant to Article 8 of the zoning ordinance as requested for the proposed Troy Marketplace outlot addition located on the southwest corner of Big Beaver and Rochester, Section 27 within the BB, Big Beaver District, be granted subject to the following condition. Number 1, submit photometric plan for approval prior to the final site plan approval.
Support.
Anything else?
That should do it.
Supported by Mr. Sanzica. Roll call, Ms. Zarnicki, please.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Zanzika?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Afayedian?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations. Try to wrap it up quickly. For us. Item number 7 on the agenda, public comment. Actually, yes, public comment for items on the current agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to anything that was on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we'll move to item number 8 on the agenda, planning commission comments. We'll start with Mr. Faison.
Nothing for me today.
When I first started here, I always loved when Karen would make comments about, well, we can't do anything about ugly. So that's what I felt tonight when I was looking at the plan over the weekend. I was like, I can't wait to tell Karen. Anyway, that's my comment for the evening. And thank you to those of you who came to the open house at the temple a few weeks ago. We'll try and do one every year, so please keep that, and we'll try and plan ahead. But, yeah, thank you for coming.
Mr. Tagle.
Well, I would like to challenge us to fight ugly. You know, again, I hope you guys, if you haven't had a chance to read the article that was sent to you, there's a lot more to quality design than just ugly. Because I mean, you'll have different people saying, I like this style or I like that style, but good design goes across all different styles. And really, that's what we should be about here, is not necessarily do we like a style or not a style, but really are there good design concepts supporting whatever the petitioner brings forth to us. And so I'm just, you know, again, unfortunately, our society has accepted ugly, and we're fighting an uphill battle, but it's a battle worth fighting, I believe.
Ms. Cruz.
Well, just to then piggyback on what he said, I can fight ugly all day long. And that's a battle I'm willing to take on. But if I'm going to take that battle on, I need support. I mean, I think we need, at some level, some sort of support in the zoning ordinances or something that allows us, gives us the discretion and the ability to say that just doesn't meet the design standards we're looking for in our community. When we have these developers come in front of us with these variance-free projects, I really feel like our hands are tied. And that's where we get stuck in the ugly and can't do much about it. So we just have to figure out a way where we can accomplish our goals in a way that serves the community and is done legally, because we certainly don't want to expose ourselves to litigation. And I'll be looking to the Assistant City Attorney, the Planning Director, and the Planning Consultant for guidance to help us accomplish these goals. So 2 weeks would be nice. And then on an unrelated note, I would like to say that I enjoyed watching Miss Howe, our student representative, graduate this weekend, summa cum laude, and National Honor Society and Phi Beta Kappa from Troy High.
Wow. And we get her for another year, Jones?
Oh, I think she's going to, isn't she going to,
Michigan College.
yeah.
I thought they just reappointed her for another year.
Am I wrong? Is there another Howe in the class? I mean, there could be. I mean, there were, almost 500 kids, but I thought it was Claire.
Well,
Oh, well, I'll retract what I just said, but I thought it was
Congratulations to the
Claire.
other Howe.
Right.
Claire's got some big shoes to fill.
I'm going to tell you that Troy High, a couple of little fun facts that I learned at graduation, it took 2.5 pages to recognize the kids from Troy High that graduated summa cum laude. And then it took another 2 pages to do magna and cum laude. And also Troy High just surpassed the IAB for the #1 spot in the state of Michigan. And also, the class of 2017 earned over $5 million in scholarship dollars. If that is just not mind-boggling. So, anyway. Okay, forget what I just said about Miss Howe. It's another Miss Howe.
Ms. Zarnicki?
I have nothing, thank you.
Mr. Stanzik?
I guess one quick question. I drive by the development at Crooks and Corporate Drive. Well, right by the exit of I-75. And there's material's been sitting there for months, the construction material, the water main. And I'm just curious, is that site abandoned or is it?
They pulled, they've been in for permits, they're moving on it.
Deliver the material early then?
Yeah.
If that's the case.
Go-getters.
So that site is moving ahead
Yeah.
and they're working on it?
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
Mr. Redmond?
I would support, in fact, I think we should have that this article be a specific agenda item, because we have, in support of Karen and John, I think this is how we can attack this. Because I'm not sure that all the design things that we got the council to approve, ordinances, are the end of it. Because I thought there was some additional things that we were going to attack, and maybe Mr. Sabadat can address that. But I agree. I think I'm a big fan of fighting ugly. That's it.
City Attorney?
No, thanks.
Mr. Carlo? Mr. Sabadat?
The Lormax Stern letter that we received, this is the first time I've seen it. Looking at it, I noticed there's no mention of a movie theater, that the movie theater owner told me they anticipate attracting between 800,000 and 1 million guests per year. So I think that's a somewhat glaring oversight on the part of Lormax Stern. That's all.
I just had one question. Do you have an update for us on the joint planning commission council meeting? Has that been set yet? Or
No, it has not.
No.
There was an email that was sent out asking for dates
Right.
from all the members. I'm not aware of what the date is yet.
Did everyone respond to that, the planning commission?
I did.
Okay.
You want to check your email?
I'm thinking about it. I'm like, ooh.
That was the email that was sent a while ago.
A couple days ago.
A couple of
Couple
days.
weeks ago.
When did it come out?
Couple weeks
No,
ago.
there
A couple weeks
There
ago.
was
another one?
There was another, yeah, there was one that went out
Who did it come out?
Monday?
Beth
Friday?
Tashman.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I didn't see that.
Oh, I didn't see that one either.
I didn't get one.
Oh,
Few weeks ago, I
see,
did.
I don't feel so bad.
So
I don't know.
I believe that those dates didn't work. There's too many conflicts.
3 days,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So let me find out, yeah, I didn't send those out.
So it's going, the survey's going again, but with more dates?
Yes,
So
yes.
it has been sent out because apparently some of us.
Well, there was one sent out.
So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna follow
A couple
up.
weeks ago.
I'll follow up with an email to the planning commission tomorrow
Great.
with a status update on the joint meeting.
Okay. Okay, no further comments,
What was the
then
letter I was referring to?
we are adjourned. Thank you.